Now, coming up to this, you've discussed this in detail, but one simple question here. Is the application process and the checks, are they just compliance checks or they're more than just compliance checks?
Um, Look,
when they're looking at me as an organization, are they looking at just my compliance or overall my business? What are they?
generally, just compliance. They will look at overall business just to establish whether they consider you a genuine business or not.
Okay.
And that's within the guidance. The guidance says what we want to look at is one, whether you're a genuine business and whether the role itself on offer is genuine. And so as part of those checks, we will carry out sometimes an audit. Now, most organizations get a license without an audit.
Okay.
An audit will generally take place at some point in their life. But with the amount of sponsors we now have on the register, I mean, we've got 100,000 plus sponsors on the register, and I would say majority of them, I'd say if there was 100,000, I'd say 85,000, 90,000 have probably never had an audit. Okay. If they decided they wanted to start auditing all of these, they're going to start off with the easier ones. Okay.
The smaller ones.
The smaller guys who, from their name, perhaps appear like these are easy targets. I don't know, A and B convenience store, A and B garages. They're probably going to get visits first.
Okay.
And then they'll move their way up. The team is very small. The compliance team is maybe less than 20 people.
Oh, wow.
And so it's physically impossible for them to carry out. And we're talking about businesses nationwide.
Wow.
Okay, these guys are generally, I think they're based in Leeds, and they've probably got a team here in London. But it's not physically possible for them to. Pre-license audits are a lot more common now.
The
interviews, and generally what they will be looking at are your HR processes. So when we talk about HR processes, they're looking at, do you have employment contracts? Do you carry out right to work checks for your employees, even if you don't have any overseas workers? Do you carry out do you take copies of passports for your employees before their employment commences? Do you have a system to check absences? Do you have a system to check whether someone's turned up to work? And that doesn't necessarily mean every company's got to have like a biometric system for workers that come in, or you've got to have a HR software. You don't have to have that stuff. But I generally recommend HR softwares to small, medium enterprises because
I found that interview really scary because I've had to do it.
Okay, what was your experience? Go on.
I found it scary in a way that it's like I'm being questioned.
Yeah.
The way the questions were coming up and the way the interview. I mean, he was. Let's say he was not polite.
Yeah, they're not trying to be. Yeah.
So. And I was under the impression that I will need these systems, but instead what I showed them was, to my surprise, were some Excel sheets with list of the employees on there, timings they come in, timings they go out, their days off sick.
And that's fine, right?
And that was, to my surprise, that part of it was completely fine.
Yeah. So look, and people get stuck because I think they find that part difficult as well. But as long as you've got like an Excel sheet and you've got details of when these workers are coming and going or what days they've taken off, and you've got a record, so you've got a system. A system could be anything. It doesn't have to be a formal software. A software is good, it's easy because it's good to track and it's easy to show them, right? But that's generally what they're looking for. And then after that is the genuineness thing. Show us your bank statements, show us your accounts, show us show us client contracts.
This is what they asked me, that if you don't have, do you have any current contracts? At the time I had a couple of contracts. So in the next 6 months, how many new contracts are you expecting? And can you show us some evidence?
And that's difficult to show sometimes because for a small business, I don't know. I don't know who I'm going to sign up.
That's where I learned. That's where I lacked, and that's where I failed.
See, and that's potentially challengeable, right? Because there was a case actually recently where, for a care home, where a care home had requested, I don't know, say 70 undefined certificates of sponsorship, and they came back to them and they said, "Show us your local authority councils contracts to show us how many hours of care you are required to provide over the next 6 months. And they said, well, it's just a stupid request. We're not going to give you that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they
They
refused,
probably don't know that.
right? And they refused them because, and again, what if I'm not doing just council? What if I don't have any council contracts? What
Private.
if I'm private? Yeah. Right. And I've got private contracts and they were like, no, this is what you have to send.
Right.
And they challenged that decision and they actually won it. Right.
Oh,
But,
wow.
it's things like that they are quite intrusive. I had a company where they had these requests and the company was quite reluctant to actually give the information because they said, give us details of people that have applied for these positions. And they were concerned from a data protection point of view, whether they could forward these CVs on, right?
Exactly.
And they were like, well, we've got all these CVs and we've got all these passports for these people, but they're not our employees. We didn't hire them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We've kept them, but is this okay from a data protection point of view? I said, look, listen, just send them everything. You've got it all there, right?
Well, I was so like hesitant
Yeah.
when he said to me that
See, my
for
approach
online banking.
generally my approach with the Home Office is one of a cooperation attitude, right? Give them whatever you can.
Yeah.
I had a interesting one recently, and it's not from a sponsor license perspective. It was a tier one entrepreneur,
Okay.
and a tier one entrepreneur over the years. It's now a closed route. I think April 25 was the last time somebody in this route could apply for indefinite leave to remain.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that was their 5 years up. So you've got to apply for indefinite leave to remain. So my client, he's been here for a while, and he applied in November 24. And it's a genuine business. He's a car sales business. He has 2 garages. Both of those sites have maybe in total over 200 cars on site.
Mm.
He has about 12 employees. But not all of them are British or settled workers. And as part of the requirements, you're required to show that you've generated 2 jobs for British people.
British. Okay.
Or settled workers, indefinite leave, European settled workers are included as well. And so this gentleman, we provided all of his accounts, details of his investments, payroll data, all of this stuff. And they came back with the funniest request in March. They said, can you send us, and I've seen this in sponsor license applications,
Okay.
can you send us, not for people that are applying for a license, but people that where they audit them after they've been given a license and they sponsored people. This is something we'll come on to. Is can you give us email correspondence for all of your emails between you and your employees to show that this is the job that they are doing? So if we said we have hired one salesman, one mechanic, whatever, we want evidence that send us the employment contracts, which I think we did, but they requested again, send us detailed job descriptions, confirmation of their salaries, and confirmation that they are doing the job you're saying that they're doing, right?
It's a strange request.
So this is what they do with sponsored workers. So with sponsored workers, what previously used to happen, and it probably does happen still to some extent now, is it used to happen a lot before because you couldn't sponsor somebody on an NVQ level 3 on a lower skilled role. Now you can. So now it's not that common. But say back then you you have a restaurant and you could only sponsor somebody as guest relations or restaurant manager. You couldn't sponsor a waiter, for example.
Yeah.
And say, for example, you can. I'm not sure if you can, but say, for example, you can because it's a lower level role. And back then you sponsored someone and you said, yes, I'm hiring a restaurant manager and he's going to be paid, £35,000 because that's what a restaurant manager should be paid. But in fact, this person was a waiter or was a kitchen assistant, right? And was being paid £18,000. They would then come in and they would say, can you show us what this person does? Is there any, and I guess it doesn't work in this example because, this is a physical role, but in an example of an IT worker or something, they would ask for emails and they would show us evidence. You said you were going to hire a software developer. Show us evidence what software he's developed. What projects is he working on? Right. And so this is where companies would get stuck because they were like, oh shit, he's working as, he's working somewhere else or he's just delivering pizzas or whatever. Right. And this is where companies would get stuck. But we had this inquiry for this client and we didn't have emails because these guys were mechanics. Why does a mechanic need an email address?
No. Yeah.
Right. He comes into work. There's no biometric system. Right. Comes into work, gets on with the job. And the sales guy, he comes in, he sells cars and he'll give his, he gives a sheet at the end of every month. These are the cars I sold for his, commission and stuff. So we had that kind of stuff. So what we gave them was WhatsApp correspondence.
Oh wow.
Okay. So I said, look, this guy doesn't have emails. This is a car showroom, right? He
Yeah.
doesn't
And
come
it's
in and
exciting.
log in and, to his computer and,
Wow.
here's some of his emails where he's requesting where he's talking to Auto Trader, or where he's requesting parts for some vehicles, or when he's sending an invoice to the British Car Auction Association and all that kind of stuff. Here's all that email stuff. But with his staff, there's a WhatsApp group,
Yeah.
there's a group, and then there's personal conversation. So here's snippets,
Yeah.
you
Of
know,
course.
of their stuff. And literally some of the guys were speaking Arabic in there.
Yeah.
He's an Arabic guy. And that's the language they speak with each other. I'm not going to translate those texts for you now, right? But you can see they're sending pictures of cars to each other,
Yeah.
right? And they're saying, and we hand wrote what the message was saying. 62 plate. It's got 80,000 miles. Shall I get it or not?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And so that's the kind of stuff we sent to them. And the application was approved. But I know some lawyers may have taken the approach of, I'm not giving you that because it's not required by the rules, right?
Would that have worked?
No,
No.
I think they would then
You've
say, well,
got to give what
you,
they've asked you to.
yeah, you've got to give them. You don't have to give them what they're asking for, but I think you've got to find a medium. You've got to find a way to find that middle ground. And so, like I said, my attitude is one of usually cooperation.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they say send us this, I say, look, we haven't got this, but I'll send you this.
Yeah, instead, yeah.
You like it, you like it. You don't like it, we can have a chat later on. Because if they're minded to refuse you on the basis that they don't think you're genuine, then we're going to have to challenge that.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know the business is genuine. And when we're challenging that, we're going to give them this evidence. We're going to give the courts all of this evidence to prove that we're genuine. Right?
Yeah.
So why let it get to that stage? Right? Just try and, find a ground where we're like, look, we haven't got a HR software, for example. We've got this Excel sheet. It shows you everything you need.
Yeah. Okay.